Coming in at number 10, we have the Entropy. So the Entropy is going to do a few things for you. First of all, it's going to be a very good artifact for tanking damage, because it's going to make it so that any damage you received can't exceed 15% of your max health. At the same time, it's going to reduce the hazard and hazard dot damage that's coming your way. That means the damage from the areas that are on the ground that are going to normally deal damage to you. And this thing is going to be reduced at the same time separate. It's going to be something separate from the dot resistance, but at the same time it's going to be added on top of it, because it works in a way where if you have also, let's say, 50% dot resistance on your character, you're literally going to take no damage. So they don't reduce separately the dot damage, they reduce it together. So it's very good in that regard. Also, it's going to reduce the hazard secondary effects, that meaning power drain and stuff like that. Very good artifact for survivability, very good for tanking Darkside super move. This is what this artifact was designed for, basically. Though not a must-have artifact, but an artifact that it's going to be good to have. It's basically, in terms of survivability, a step up from the region matrix, and very good in fights where you are going to be encountering hazards. Coming in at number 9, we're going to actually have the God Killer. So what does the God Killer do? First of all, he's going to have the passive that allows you to steal some attack from the opponent, stacks up to 3 times. And this is not the greatest thing in the world, though it's good to have, and on some certain teams it can give you a pretty good damage boost. But this has kind of been made irrelevant by the Dark Metal cards, because if you're looking for some artifact to boost your damage, which is not all blades, you have access to Dark Metal cards, which is also free to get artifact. But it's a passive that's good, that's there. The second passive is actually going to be what makes this artifact very good and very viable, which is going to be a chance to make the enemy not able to block. If the enemy is not able to block, then you're going to be able to do with a lot of characters, a lot of infinite combos on the enemy. Using this on the multiverse team on some fights allows you to have perfect gameplay without needing to combo interrupt, and it just takes away the need to combo interrupt for a lot of characters and can lock some characters that even if you would be able to combo interrupt, you don't want them doing anything into an infinite combo. Overall, very good artifact, not because of the flat values that it provides, but because of the utility that this is going to be able to provide. And it brought back a lot of old infinite combos, like Flash infinite combos, Robin infinite combos. Good stuff overall. Coming in at number 8, it's going to be Sword of Sin, and some of you might have expected this item to be higher on the list, and if I was to make this list, let's say 1 year ago when this was released, I would have put it far higher on the list, but don't get me wrong, it's a great artifact. So let's talk about it first, and then let's explain afterwards the reasoning why it's lower on the list than some of you might expect. So first up, you're going to have a chance to steal 3 power bars on a successful swipe. Actually, it will go to a higher chance as you get a higher level of it. And you'll deal additional damage for each of the opponent's absent power bars. So the power steal is going to be amazing. Power steal is basically power drain on steroids, because the power that you drain is going to be added to yourself. You're basically stealing it, as it says. And this will stack with fast attack hits, pretty much doubling your chance if you hit a fast attack hit to be able to apply this debuff on the opponent and steal the power. The damage side of things can be good, though it's not as good as it might seem, but can indeed be good. It's something along the lines of, it's not the best thing in the world. In most scenarios, on most teams, you'd rather use all blades than this if you don't have something better or something suited to that specific soul rates. But if you have a certain team that's going to heavily benefit from staying in the fights, I usually use this on Manta team, this is going to be a good thing for you. The power stealing is also going to come in handy in fights where you're going to need the opponent to not have power bars, like Dark Side fight, like Phase 4 fights, pretty much anything that can kill you when they get to super move. So overall, a good artifact. Why I did put it lower on the list, like on release I did like this artifact far more than the Sword of Sin, but as I played more and more, I kept encountering situations where I needed Sword of Sin while Sword of Salvation was not needed. So if you don't have either Sword of Sin or Sword of Salvation, Sword of Sin would be great to have, but Sword of Salvation would be great to have, but Sword of Sin overall is going to be far more versatile in most scenarios, except for the damage side of things. So that's simply why I put it here. I have never encountered a situation where I was like, oh boy, I wish I had Sword of Salvation, or if I did not have Sword of Salvation, I wouldn't be able to do this. On the other hand, with Sword of Sin, which is kind of the counterpart of this, I did encounter a lot of scenarios, and a lot of fights wouldn't be possible without the Sword of Sin. So this is basically why I just feel like this is the lower performing of the swords, but still a very solid artifact. Coming in at number 7, we have the Firebox. So the Firebox is going to give you some additional damage on rush attacks, and when you're below a certain amount of health, it's going to heal you, and it's going to cleanse all the debuffs. By debuffs, it means stuns, dots that are inflicted upon you, pretty much anything that appears on the left side of the screen, and it's not a buff. And also give you a rush attack, which allows some infinite combos with some characters, especially Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate loves this artifact. And will be able to avoid some specific stuff like ranged projectiles. The rush attack damage is not going to be that great, like it's going to be serviceable, it's going to be somewhat usable outside of Dawn of Apocalypse when you are not taking benefit of the passive attack that it provides, but for the most part this is not going to be the best choice in terms of that, especially since the Dark Metal cards got released, and if you need something that gives you damage and is not all blades, you're going to go with the Dark Metal cards. But in Dawn of Apocalypse it's a solid buff that it provides, and it's a very good artifact overall, and yet again I'm kind of pivoting this list as I do with every list for Raids and Soul Raids performance. If this list was about Arena and Champions Arena performance, then this would have made it far higher because it's a great artifact for tanking damage as well and helping you not die. Coming in number 6, we got one of the newest artifacts that got added. It's also a free artifact, and keep in mind this is done when this is able to give him Flank Sakumen and Deathstroke clones percentage health damage on specials. I don't think that should get removed, I think that works properly, I don't think that's a bug, but if that gets removed in the future, this artifact will score lower on the list. So basically it's gonna give you some damage, some attack actually, not damage. Attack is worse than damage, by the way. It's gonna give you some attack when you perform a certain special, like any special, up to 4 times. It's going to also heal you a bit when you perform a special, so that's also great for survivability. And if you get killed, you will not get killed, but instead tagged out, healed while you're tagged out, and the clone will get tagged in. Now there's quite a lot of uses for those clones actually, because if this was all the artifact would do, it would most likely not even make it on the list. But there's a lot of stuff that the clones can do, and this artifact as a whole can do. This can allow you to tank phase 4 super moves and dark side super moves, and your whole team doesn't get wiped, instead a clone gets put in there. So that's going to be very useful, and those clones are going to be used to buff Last of Joker to a very high extent, and for people who don't have Heartbreak Harley Quinn, that's going to be a very, very huge thing. And as I said, the percentage health damage on the clones for Flank Sakumen and Deathstroke. Also, this kind of locks Ben Hulafs into the Darkest Night form if he's in the form when he gets killed and tagged out by NORA'S Globe, but that's most likely a bug, and that is the most likely thing to get fixed. And honestly, it's not a huge deal, and it's not even really helping you out that much. You still deal the most damage overall. So yeah, very good artifact overall. Coming in at number 5, we have an artifact that would make it all the way to number 2 if this was not bugged. So we get the Jokerized Veterans. The Jokerized Veterans are going to give you additional fast attack hits, and at the same time will give you more damage that is dealt separately as poison damage to the enemy, and is going to ignore defense, and that is going to be applied after you successfully perform a special. So basically you do your hits, perform a special, and it will apply a debuff, and while that's active, more damage. So what's fast attack hits? Let me go into a brief explanation here. Each character is gonna have fast attack hit and a fast attack chance. The fast attack chance is going to be the chance to hit a fast attack hit, and if you hit that, you're going to have this number here, which is 2 for most characters at base. This number basically makes you do an extra hit. That extra hit is going to also apply extra combo, and is also going to apply damage as one of your hits normally would. And for a lot of characters, this is going to be a huge deal because they rely on dealing damage through their basic attack hits. So the problem with this thing is going to be that it does not bypass the fast attack chance cap. So the characters apparently have a 4-hit fast attack chance cap. They can't have more than 4 fast attack hits. The only exception to this is Martian Manhunter. So this really sucks for characters like Justice Flash, where he already has 3 fast attack hits and he can benefit only from 1 additional from this. And this gives 3 of them, by the way, at max level or close to max level. So by default, if you put this on Camouflage Sakoman, it says it's going to give him 3 fast attack hits, but only 2 of them will actually work, and this is very dumb. If this would work 100% properly, this would most likely be for a lot of characters better than the Beta Club, but sadly that is not the case. But yeah, very good artifact nevertheless. Coming in at number 4, we have the Sword of Sin. This artifact is just amazing. It does 2 things and 2 very simple things. It's going to inflict burning on the enemy, and the burning is going to reduce the defense of the enemy by half, and it stacks. If you don't let it expire, it's going to reduce the current defense by half. So you get first reduce the defense to half, then reduce to 3/4, and it keeps going. And the second thing is going to be power draining the enemy. It's going to be by far the best artifact in every single fight and every single scenario where you need to power drain the enemy so they don't use certain specials or certain super moves on you. And at the same time, it's going to be a very convenient to use artifact in a lot of fights. Like, a lot of the times I just put this on Brainiac and go with Beta Club Raven. And it just makes the fight a lot easier. The enemy constantly not having access to power makes the fight 1000% easier and 1000% more bearable. And the defense reduction on top of it makes this an artifact that you can use in every single fight in one way or another to reduce the defense of the enemy. I can put this on Arkham Knight Batman in League Raids to reduce the defense of the sub-bosses. I can put this on Brainiac to reduce defense if I want to. There's just a lot of applications and a lot of scenarios where I was just so grateful that I do have this artifact. So yeah, very, very good artifact actually. Coming in at number 3, we're going to have the Dark Metal cards. So Dark Metal cards are the best, by far, free artifact that you're going to get by completing a certain soul rate. Not the best free artifact, we're going to get into that afterwards, but the best free soul rate specific artifact that you get by default by completing the normal difficulty, and then you get, again, every single difficulty you complete. So what does this do? So it's going to give you some crit damage. Oh boy, name 1 damage there in the game that does not benefit from crit damage. Nobody. And it's a straightforward value because sometimes it's gonna be damage on basic attack hits, attack on basic attack hits, attack, damage, and sometimes they don't even work. This is straightforward. It's crit damage. It's a value that we've already been working with since the game release pretty much. It's a value that we can trust, and it's a value that works. On top of that, it's going to spawn an area that's going to guarantee crits while you're on that area. So this is not only good for dealing damage, but it's good to put on a support character, so that support character can put an area that guarantees crits for your damage dealer. Also, the wearer of that is going to have a chance... actually, no. In any character, actually, that's on the area will also have a chance to ignore crit immunity. That means this is going to make fights like Raven and all other fights that have dumb immunities like crit immunity far more bearable and far more balanced. So this artifact not only introduced something very good to the game, but it also went back and fixed bad things that were introduced in the past. And that is why it made it all the way up here. It could arguably be better than All Blades, but I just went with a safe route and put All Blades above it. But yeah, let's get into that. Coming in at number 2, we have All Blades. It's an artifact that you have a chance to drop from League Raids, and you'll eventually get it. You might drop it from the first few soul raids you play. Some people have waited 1 year to drop this, but trust me, you'll eventually get it. So what does this do? It's going to give you 150% more attack on tag, and it's going to be only attack, so it's going to be calculated out of your base stack. So for most characters, the safe value to assume is going to be that you're going to get, let's say, 4.5k attack for each stack of All Blades. Now, the All Blades is going to stack multiple times. So you're going to get yourself, with some teams, there's some teams that are able to do this. For most teams, it's going to be kind of the safe assumption that they're going to run on 3 All Blade stacks, but some teams are going to go all the way to 4 All Blade stacks. You need to have very, very careful tagging play and tagging it out as soon as possible, but in theory this has the potential to give you everywhere, not in one specific rate, not in one specific soul rate. Everywhere this has the potential to give you, let's say, 18k attack. And this just makes this artifact so great. Now the downside of it is that it's going to constantly inflict dot damage on you. This is kind of the cost that you're for using this artifact. It's going to be mainly a high risk, high reward artifact. But the dot damage side of things is something that players have learned to play around and simply not get their damage to their hit. And with the damage there is not really such a big deal that he's gonna take dots, because in a lot of scenarios, if you get your damage to their hit, they're gonna die anyway, regardless of if they were full health or half health. And it's also going to reduce the cost of the super move for Red Hood, and that's going to be good. Just drop on Red Hood, and every single time you need to use super move, and you'll need to do so because his super move is good, you're going to get that reduction. So overall, in my opinion, the second best artifact in the game. Again, you could argue for other artifacts like the Dark Mail cards, but it's a very good artifact. Oh boy, who would have guessed? Look, a lot of people hate this artifact, and it's for good reason. Because it's the most pay-to-win artifact. It's an artifact that you might drop from the rewards of Rise of Krypton, but you're very unlikely, or you have to pay money for. And if you do pay money for and get this, it's going to heavily increase your damage. It's going to make the Batman Ninja team deal on average 5 times the damage. It's going to make Influence Aquaman deal on average 2 times the damage. If you put a Raven in there, it's gonna be... oh boy, it's gonna be like 20 or 30 times the damage. It's gonna make Raven deal 20 or 30 times her damage. Is gonna make Manta deal twice the damage that he normally deals. It's gonna make Mr. Freeze from being an above average character for people who don't have beta cup to being a god tier character. It's just a very good artifact, and I'm sorry that not more people have access to it. But yeah, deserves number 1 for the performance that it has. This was everything for this list. Let me know in the comments if you do agree with the list. If there's any artifacts that I did not mention on this list and you feel like deserve a spot, let me know. Also keep in mind when this video is released, because we might get a bunch of new artifacts with new soul rates introduced into the game, and those might be better than what we already have. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!
This is the future.